And I realized that I couldn't keep teaching math the way that I had learned math, and that as elementary educators, we have such a responsibility to foster and cultivate a love of numbers and a kind of just a growth mindset. And it's our job as educators to be constantly evolving.
After doing number talks, counting collections, and making relationships in mathematics have really made an impact in the way that my students will view math, as they, go on to their elementary, middle school, high school, and beyond.
Hello and welcome to Just-in-Time Support for Math. I'm Lisa Melton Pizzuto, Local District Northeast Math Coordinator. Today we're going to be talking about math talks with Google Jamboard and Zoom. Let's get started. Today we'll be highlighting resources from Illustrative Mathematics and Number Talk Images. You can find the resources from Illustrative Math by Googling Illustrative Mathematics and going straight to their main page. You'll click on the resources for distance learning. Here you'll find the Illustrative Math Talking Math K5 prompts. Prompts are also available for grades 6 through 8, along with a blog post that explains how you might use these. And each of these resources will open up in Google Slides. Once I've found a picture I like, I can click on it. You might notice that there's a launch question at the top and then a grade level question at the bottom. These questions are available for grades K through 5 around the same picture, and I can decide which question I want to use for my class. I can copy and paste the questions and copy and paste the images into new slides in my own Google Drive. Another nice support tool can be found in the notes of the Google Slides. Here, you'll have some ideas for what you can do after you've talked about the image with students. There are so many great images to choose from, and different images will lend themselves to different mathematical ideas. Different images will be relatable to kids and will help them see math in their own world. And some of them are just really fun. The Illustrative Mathematics resources are also available for grades 6 through 8. Some of these resources include norms for how to facilitate a math talk with your students. Illustrative Mathematics is continually adding to these every week, so you might want to add this to your own Google Drive so that you can check back often. Here you'll find a launch question with an interesting image to support mathematical thinking and ideas, and then another slide with various questions that you could use to support further discussion around that image. You'll also find some additional supports in the notes section. Highlight below to see the solutions. These are available in both English and Spanish, and they will inspire you to come up with your own math talks for your classroom. If you're looking for some other places to get some great pictures, you might try the Number Talk Images website. Here you'll find images of dots that you can use for a quick image activity or a regular number talk. You'll also find a great array of various photos that you can use to have number talks in the classroom with your students. These can be incorporated into Google Slides or Google Jamboard, like we'll see in just a moment. These offer a number of opportunities for some great mathematical thinking and can be used for a wide audience all the way through high school. There are so many different mathematical ideas to uncover here. I highly recommend browsing this resource. Now that we know what the Illustrative Mathematics resources are, let's answer the question of how can I use this resource with students? When you found a slide you like, you can simply copy the slide and then go back into your Google Drive. Start a new Google slide presentation. The Illustrative Mathematics Google Slides are in standard view, so you'll need to click on File, Page Setup, and switch to a standard size screen before you paste them in. Simply paste the slide in that you would like to work with. When you're ready, you can begin editing the slide by changing the questions, moving the text boxes, or making the pictures bigger. When you're ready, go ahead and change the title of the slide presentation so that you can find it later. In addition to using Google Slides, I can also facilitate math talks with Google Jamboard. This is a digital whiteboard for cloud collaboration, and it allows me to annotate right on top of a picture on the screen. Students can also participate by annotating as well. The first thing I would need to do to get a Google Jamboard going is open up my Google Drive, click New, move down to More, and then I'm going to select Google Jamboard. I'm going to open up a new Jamboard so that I can place pictures and begin annotating for a math talk with students. If you're already logged into your account, you can also click on the waffle in the top right corner and scroll down until you find Jamboard. Here, you'll see all your recent jams all in one place. Here is a Jamboard that I've already started that has 4 frames. I can add sticky notes to the Jamboard to capture student thinking or ask questions. I can also put in any picture as long as it's a JPEG or PNG file that I might want to use to support a number talk or math talk routine with my students. This can help to document student thinking and help make sure everyone in the class is making sense of the math that's being shared. Another nice feature of Google Jamboard is I can take screenshots of 2 separate approaches from 2 different students and put them side by side. Now we can have a discussion about the different mathematical approaches, but we can also make connections between the different approaches and do more thinking about the math. This approach can really support some extensions and help kids get involved in some rich mathematical discourse. Let's hear from Nicole Chiarella, first grade teacher at Sylvan Park Elementary, about what's working with Jamboard.
Hello, my name is Nicole Chiarella. I teach first grade at Sylvan Park, and today I want to show you how you can use the Google Jamboard to help student engagement, specifically in math. At the beginning of the lesson, I am going to go ahead and start with Google Slides just because it's a little easier to embed images and links and things like that. Google Jamboard is just really useful for student engagement. So I'm not using Google Jamboard the entire time, but I do try to use it quite a bit just so students aren't passively receiving information. So I'll go ahead, begin my lesson. And as we go along, you're going to see some hyperlinks that are embedded within my presentation. And then when I select this quick images hyperlink, it's going to take me to my Google Jamboard right here. So it says right here, are you ready for quick images? Now at this point, students should be muted. This is your turn. They will get a turn shortly, but this is a really nice pro of Zoom, which is you can mute all your students. So even if you have students who are shouting out, it gives other mathematicians a chance to gather their thoughts and also participate in the lesson. And I'm only going to show them the quick image for about 5 seconds. Then I'm going to go ahead and move to the next slide, which I've already set up prior to the lesson. Now, students will have a moment to show me on their fingers if they're ready, if they want to tell me and participate how many numbers they saw. Where it says, how many did you see? That's where we'll start. So I'll elicit some student thinking, and I'll have students tell me what numbers they saw. So maybe Jayla saw 5. I'll type it up on the sticky note. And maybe Alan saw 6. So I'll go back to a sticky note. I'm going to change the color just to differentiate between students. And of course, students love picking their own color, so that's always another way to foster engagement. So Jayla saw 5, Alan saw 6. Once I've elicited a couple students, I'll go ahead and move forward with revealing what the actual answer is. So I can either go to the previous slide and, they'll say, oh, I saw 5. Some might revise their answer and say, oh, I saw 5 too. And then I'll go back to the screen.
So quick images are a really great instructional routine because they work with what students already know about numbers, which is starting at like visual representations. So students understand visual representations of numbers. It's how they're introduced to the concept of numbers, how we count things. And so When we work with that and we have students subitize or decompose large numbers into smaller numbers, we're strengthening this really important foundational skill of being able to understand relationships. But you can't understand relationships until you understand what quantities are or what they look like compared to each other. And I think it's also really important that students are learning to integrate these foundational concepts of numbers with technology and how you can use different tools and models and strategies to help you in the real world. And on top of that, students are building on these skills, not only in the classroom, but now they're building on them at home, which means now they can solve problems in so many different contexts using so many different models, tools, and strategies that it can be really powerful to do this at home.
So for them to show me how they saw it, I'll select the select tool and I move my post that I already set up with screenshots underneath. I'll grant remote access to whatever students gave me an answer, for example, Jayla, and she'll be able to select the pen, pick her color, and show me how she saw this quick image. So for example, maybe she said, well, first I saw 3 dots in the 10 frame, and then I saw 2 more. So she went ahead, she visually showed me how she saw it, and then I'm gonna have her write the number sentence. Then I can go ahead and do the same for Alan. And again, I've put another quick image so I can have 3 students be able to show me their thinking and then also write the number sentence to engage them and make sure that I'm not doing too much work and that they're actively working.
So a next step would be to utilize some of the applications and online resources we have that allow students to make their own images. So they could use counters or upload images of their own, take pictures of something, and create their own subitizing or quick image that I can condense, put into Google Slides, and then have other students look at. So we're not just looking at the same visual representation of numbers through dots, but maybe we could look at them through socks or cupcakes or something they built on their own to just strengthen that skill.
Let's learn a little bit more about what's working from Alejandra Arias Linares, 3rd grade teacher at Sylvan Park Elementary.
Hello everyone, I am going to be showing you how I use Jamboard to do number talks with my 3rd graders. So when I first do a number talk, I select an image like the one showed here, and I just show the image to my students. I don't have any prior notes, it's just the image itself, and I just let my students look at the image without putting any type of question up, just for them to look and for them to notice and for them to really just capture the image without any words. And then once they have a bit of maybe a minute or two to look over this image, I then go to the next one. And in this next one, you're going to see that I start asking them a few questions. I start asking them, okay, well, now that we've seen the image and we've had some time to think about it, what do you notice and what do you wonder? And I have a Zoom call with my students. So what I do is they raise their hand and I jot down the answers on the little sticky right here. And I just, jot down anything that they're telling me. We haven't even gotten into the math part yet, where I still use the Jamboard, like the first 2 slides, just to, get anything out of the way that they're wondering about the image, like why they're cut up that way or what they even are. And as you notice here, the answers start off very simple, like they're just noticing tomato pieces. And then I always make sure that I guide my students to asking them, can you tell me more about that? So they said, I noticed they're in an array, right? So I wanted to know, tell me more about that. Like, what do you see in the array? And then they said, I noticed there are groups of 4, right? So it's an array, and then there's in each little bundle of tomatoes, there's like 4. And then another student said, I know that if we put them together, they could make a circle. And then going over to this part is, what are you wondering about the tomatoes? So the value of what do I notice or what am I wondering is really for student engagement, as well as having a discussion, because I feel that students really thrive on connection. And then when one student says something and somebody else connects to that idea, that just kind of lightens up like the whole full sense of math, because I mean, at least for me, like there was always this kind of like fear of math, like it seemed something so abstract, and the having this what am I noticing and what am I wonder into my math, it just kind of seems to put the tone more on like, oh my God, we're making connections, we're discussing, you notice that, I notice that. And it's just so great because it really does build like really, really amazing just connections within my students and within themselves.
So I wanted them to put this question into their mind: how are the tomatoes being grouped? Because I wanted them to notice that while they're being grouped in these rows, like they were saying, an array, they can also count them individually, right? So they can count the tomato pieces, and they can also do per groups. And that's what I love about Jamboard, is I have these little tools here, and I can interact with my students, on live time, and make notes of everything that they're noticing. So this is really, really amazing. And once we were done doing that, then I had the same image on another slide, and then we actually started doing like the calculations. And then again, we first started with this one, and that's how many whole tomatoes, because we were discussing on how four little pieces of tomatoes make a whole. So once we did that, then I asked them, okay, well, now we know how many whole tomatoes, but tell me more about these individual pieces. And once again, like my previous image, I use my tools right here to the left, the highlighter tool, to group the tomato in. And then we did alongside that an addition sentence.
Yeah, so for my next steps, I definitely want to start assigning little mini groups within like my Zoom meetings with my students, so they have an image in Jamboard and they're able to annotate. And then I'll give another group the same image, and then that way we'll come back and we'll compare both images to see what one group kind of noticed and what one group like just came up with versus the other group. That way we can see like what connections we made, the different type of thinking, and always just the different approaches. I feel that that's so valuable for students to see that we can come up with something so different and it's not wrong, but it's just the value of us, looking at math in different ways.
We just heard some great examples of what's working in Nicole Chiarella and Alejandra Arias Linares' classroom. They got to share some great ideas for how they're using Jamboard and the illustrative mathematics and number talk images for a synchronous lesson with students over Zoom. They got to highlight for us the importance of math discourse in the classroom and using our talk moves to make sure students are having meaningful conversation around mathematics. These resources, however, could also be used asynchronously, or if you're trying to implement a blended model of synchronous and asynchronous instruction. Thank you for joining us today for Just-in-Time Support for Math, featuring Math Talks with Google Jamboard and Zoom. See you next time. Yay! That's great.
So amazing.